Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Descent into Madness podcast. It has been like 3 years, not quite 4, since the last attempt at making any sort of anything out of this. Now, to our absolutely loyal viewers of no one, we have made a triumphant return that no one asked for. Kind of like the new Spaceballs. No one was really asking for it at this point.
I'm
But
excited for the new Spaceballs. I don't know about you.
oh, I'm fucking hyped for Spaceballs. Don't get me wrong. And that's why the people are going to be hyped for this to come back. No one asked for it anymore. But
It was
we
a
are here
pleasant
to deliver.
surprise for sure.
Yeah, we are here to deliver. IGN's going to post about it.
Oh God, about Spaceballs or about us?
Both. That's actually where I
They're
saw
gonna
the
give them
Spaceballs
similarly
trailer.
bad
It was
reviews.
on IGN.
Was it on IGN? I was like,
Yeah.
I can't wait to read a gaming article about the new
Yeah,
Spaceballs
IGN
movie.
posted it. May the Schwartz be with you. Anyway,
Top 10 Schwartz moments.
we are back, and we actually have a bit more of a structured itinerary to go off of this time around, as opposed to, just winging it and then going down a Destiny 1 nostalgia for 10 episodes straight. So, uh, we have a couple different topics, but one new section that is, I guess the name is subject to change. It's been judged and hasn't been judged favorably, so we need to workshop it, I guess. But we're going to do a little D&D section, as we the last thing we ever left off on was actually a D&D type podcast where we were trying out playing it. And to be honest, it was more of a shit show than what it was worth. But this is not so much of actually podcasting a game. This is something that we can just kind of talk over different items. I am going on pretty much 6 years, a 6-year forever DM at this point. Very well versed in the storytelling of the game. Chris here is very versed in the actual core mechanics of the game and playing. And Thomas is pretty much a newbie entirely to D&D in the grand scheme of things. I mean, yeah, he's played his handful of TTRPGs, but actual structured D&D, he is brand new to it. So there's kind of an interesting synergy between the three of us, and I want to talk about some of these things and possibly be able to give out advice for anyone that is looking to get into it or has any questions. And because we have a view of a brand new player that might have some questions that you didn't even know you had. And then Chris, I know we talked about it the other day, but possibly, you looking into getting further into DMing and can help out, hopefully give some insight on maybe some DMing skills, and overall hoping to round out the section and get some more players out there a bit more comfortable. So that's where this section is going to come from. I guess unprompted. Thomas, I'm going to throw you under the bus because you're the new person here on the podcast. So give yourself an introduction and ask a question. I don't care what, but ask.
Yeah. I'm Thomas. I'm a level 5 Birdman Warlock. I have one real leg and one wooden leg because my DM hates me, so he took my leg off. One thing that we've talked about a lot since I started playing D&D is just the both usefulness and lack thereof of multiclassing, because it's always a give and take, is my understanding so far. And I guess I'm just kind of curious if there really is any balanced approach that you're not just going to be drowning until the late game, if you attempt multiclassing. What combination of classes there might be and what order you would do it in and whatnot.
Overall, from my general understanding of it, and this is where Chris can jump in and definitely answer a bit more than I can, multi-classing overall isn't as strong. There's, of course, a handful of your stereotypical build crafting classes out there, like Sorelock and Coffee Lock, stuff like that really get crazy very early on. But my general opinion is you end up, until you hit like level 15 or something, to where you can have a good even split or enough levels into one class versus another, it is usually end up shooting yourself in the foot by missing some of your main class features if you were just to divinate into one. That's my overall opinion. That's how I've always understood it.
Yeah, the biggest thing to keep in mind when multi-classing, in my opinion, is your class's breakpoints. Stuff like, for an example, most martial classes get extra attack at level 5, meaning that when you take the attack action, you can attack twice with a weapon. That's an important milestone that pretty much, if you play without that as a martial character, you're all of a sudden going to be doing nothing during your combat turns. You're going to feel all of a sudden you miss an attack and like, all right, well, that's my whole turn. And if you do hit, you're doing way less damage than, let's say, the equivalent like level 5 monk who has taken his level 5. That monk gets to attack twice, bonus action attack twice. So when multiclassing, you have to keep in mind about what are your class's strongest abilities and when do you get them. Because stuff like a fighter is a very nice class to take a low level dip into, because earliest as level 2, you get one of fighter's core abilities, the action surge, which lets you take an additional action. That, it's a really cool ability in on itself. However, it's not as important for any of the casting classes. There is the argument to be made that an additional action lets you break the rule on casting multiple leveled spells in a turn, but ultimately that wizard's doing a bunch of other shit with his turn anyways. But extra attack works very well on a lot of other martial classes because of extra attack, which means that normally when you want to multi-classes, you pick your main class first. You want to pick something. What are the abilities you want most of? Because normally that will determine stuff like your weapon proficiencies and what you actually want to do with the character. And those are most important to take first at level 1. But then after that, you have to decide, all right, I get my subclass at level 3. I get extra attack at level 5. When am I okay with sacrificing other level up features to start building towards the other classes' requirements? Because while you're, let's say you're level 5 warlock right now. At level 6 and level 7, you get additional class features based on your class and subclass. However, if you wanted to multi-class now, are you okay with waiting for the rest of your warlock features for the next 2 levels while you build into another class? And it very, very much depends on what classes you're multi-classing together.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess my fixation with multi-classes just comes a lot from TikTok, to be quite honest with you, because you go through TikTok, and if you're on D&D Talk, you see plenty of videos where they're like, hey, DM, I want to play this character this game, and da-da-da-da, and then it's some groundbreaking, game-breaking class combination, I guess. So that's kind of always what piqued my interest about it. Not necessarily because I like breaking the game in any sense, but just the fact that people can come up with stuff like that, and I can't
and
wrap my head around it.
Well,
there
there's
are
a
certain
lot of it.
combinations that are crazy.
And it's gotten to the point where, like on TikTok and stuff like that, where actually the new PHB or the new DM guide actually points out of be hesitant with looking into online builds and that stuff, because it's not supposed to be used. The one that they use as example all the time is the what do they call it, the NPC cannon or whatnot, the NPC particle cannon, because it's technically everyone can use it.
The peasant railgun.
Yeah, the peasant railgun.
What a good story. So the ideal concept between what the peasant railgun is a group of people came together and workshopped this idea that according to the laws of physics, an object moving at relative speeds obviously would impart a certain amount of like kinetic damage to an object if it was struck. Like, let's say you take a telephone pole and you try to push it through somebody's chest at 5,280 feet per second. That's really fast. That's a lot of force being imparted on that object and on the person you're hitting. So the idea behind the peasant railgun is that one turn takes 6 seconds in D&D. From the top of initiative all the way to the bottom is 6 seconds. So the idea is to hire as many commoners out of a town as possible. You'll pay them, like, let's say a gold a piece for 500 guys. I mean, a gold in a peasant's lifetime is a fortune. So you hire all of these people to stand in a line a mile outside of town, and you each have them ready in action to take the wooden pole from behind them. The guy all the way at the end of the line is going to have a stick, a javelin, a rung from a ladder or something. And he's going to take his action and hand it to the person in front of him. Every further person in the line is readying an action to take that pole and pass it forward. The idea here is you pass that pole a mile in 6 seconds, or however long you have the railgun, to then make the argument with your DM that the guy at the end of the path that is throwing it at the end, it's moving at 15 miles per hour and it hits that guy dead in the chest, he should die. Well, the rules don't really impart on actual, like, trajectory speeds. There's nothing in the rules as written of D&D that objects actually accelerate, which, yeah, they do in a physical world, but this is a make-believe pen and paper. There's no science there.
They've had to call
So
out that physics isn't a 1-to-1 in D&D.
Yeah. Because it's built on the argument of, oh, rules as written says you can do that. Yeah, you can pass the stick down a mile. I mean, that's how it works. But the guy at the end who's throwing the stick, it only does a d6 of damage, because that's the thrown weapon. Throwing an improvised weapon. So no matter how fast that stick is moving by the end of it, it gets to the last guy and it just limply out of his hands. Because you can't abuse the rule of, like, moving an object that fast by passing it through reactions.
Technically, he still has to roll to hit, so it could go all this mess, all this setup, and then the fucker rolls a 1, misses anyway.
Yeah, it rolls a 1 and misses, but
those 499 peasants are going to beat the dog shit out of that guy, though.
Yeah. Well, that action economy, yeah, if they all just ganged up on him, you wouldn't need the railgun in the first place.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the guy who missed. They're going to jump the dude who misses.
Yeah, that guy's fucked for sure.
Tell them you'll only pay them if they hit.
Yeah, that's kind of the fun quirks, and that's also the fun part about being the DM, of battling your players when they're all in one conviction, trying to make something like that work. At what point do you just lay down the law and use what I like to call it, like, the word of God? Because essentially, as the DM, you are the true God of the world, and you technically have the authority to say, this isn't a democracy, this is a dictatorship, and what I say goes. You know, at what point do you step in and use your power to just shut it down? Because there is a point where if you're too loose with it, your players will start running all over it. But if you're too strict with it, write a book. You know, at that point, you take away player agency. But that's always the fun nuances of it.
Figuring out when is something that is, all right, this is cool, I can let this slide. This isn't going to be a hamper on the game or anything, or cause issues when in the future they're going to try to abuse this mechanic against me multiple times.
Well, one I like to think of is back when we were playing Curse of Strahd, when your character lost his leg. I'm sensing a theme here in my games. But
yeah, what is it, man?
When you guys
fight a nickel for every time.
When you guys took gallons of extra fat, from the butcher's cart and waste, and fat is very, very combustible, and in a big enough quantity and dense enough packed, it's able to be argued to be an explosive accelerant. And you guys took and ended up being like 80 pounds of extra fat from animals and everything, and used it as a freaking
was like
bomb.
An entire dumpster.
Yeah, like a dumpster size.
Fat garbage.
Like, you know what? I didn't think about that, but cool. Let's do it.
And it all stemmed from, we asked about it earlier, like, what happened if this lit on fire? It'd probably blow up. And that's all it took.
Yeah, and that was enough of the seeds planted. And it was one of those ones where that's one of the best things ever as the DM is a DM offhand comment of, what would happen if we lit this on fire? Oh, it'd probably blow up. And then we moved on. And then 3 sessions later, we're like, oh, we need something big. We need something to punch.
Yeah, we need
creature.
something to blow up.
And we're like, and everyone goes, oh, remember the dumpster? I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess. And that's always the, like I said, the fun nuances of being a DM is trying to find that balance of, all right, yeah, we can push the reality a little bit here, but at what point do we have to reel it back in? And especially when it comes to, okay, we're going to be changing stuff that is going to completely change the continuity of the game versus, all right, this is a one-off occasion. And it also helps having, we're a pretty close table at this point. I mean, we've all been playing for, in our newest campaign, a year. But overall, like Chris, you've been my player for now going on 4 years. And
Heck yeah.
So we're pretty close table to the point where there isn't a lot of the issues that I think people at like game stores that are trying to run games might have of accidentally introducing things into continuity. Because as our table understands that I am being generous and allowing some of these things at some points, to a one-off pass, that doesn't mean it's going to be the continuous rule. And then there's other items where it's, depending on what it is, of like basically where potions were a bonus action, when technically I think in Raw they are a proper
Full
action
to consume a potion.
Yeah, to consume it. Where it's something like that wasn't a one-off ruling, that was kind of a discussion, and all right, yeah, we can say that as a normal. It's a bonus action to drink it yourself, but an action to feed it to someone if they were down, which I think that makes the most sense, and that's kind of where we landed. I like reading some of those D&D horror stories, and you have some of these people that have the issue of accidentally introducing something into the game continuity of it was supposed to be a one-off comment or a one-off time, and then that person holds on to it. Can't really think of any examples, but I know it happens. It usually happens with some like stupid magic item of, oh yeah, it's this magic item that automatically refills your bucket of water or something like that, and then someone gets a hold of it and goes, we can slowly drown everyone because we'll just keep filling this hole until it goes above their head. I'm like, oh yeah, let's not do that. So yeah, well, good questions about the multi-classing and stuff. The one I kind of want to get into, and because that's what kind of sparked this idea of doing this little section. I'm gonna look back on our text here, Chris, because that was what made me think about it. Were you talking about?
Oh boy.
Kind of some of your worries about doing a long-term DM and doing the big story building. All right, we got a 4-year campaign going, and everything you guys have done, I already have planned out, and I was way ahead of you all. It was me, Barry, the whole time.
It was me, Barry.
This is something that I think a lot of DMs that are new to doing actual campaigns instead of doing one-offs and small, like maybe 3 or 4 session campaigns, probably all struggle with the overwhelmingness until you get kind of into your own rhythm of trying to plan an overarching story, especially homebrewing one, because the homebrew environment is completely on you to make it unless you take it from someone else. Whereas if you are running a module like Curse of Strahd, you have the book to follow along with, and you know that there's going to be a valid endpoint, especially with a game like Curse of Strahd. Obviously, the endpoint is going to be defeating Strahd, the big vampire guy, and taking him down. Whereas a game like we have going now, East Dogun, which is completely of my own creation, there is, where I have ideas in my head of where we could end. There's no real definable endpoint as of where we are now in the game. It could possibly go a couple different ways, but that's on me to kind of figure out. But we're nowhere near that point. So the one thing I wanted to touch on is that beginning stage, because I think one of the hardest parts is getting started in those campaigns. I think that's the most overwhelming portion, because you have the entirety laid out in front of you. You don't know the cadence yet. You don't have the rhythm of the players. And I think one of the hardest parts is trying to adapt to players, because especially in campaigns, and depending on the group of players you have, like our group of players are more RP heavy, which is great because that's the game I like to run. I like our group. But with that, there's kind of that weird period when we're just starting the game where people are figuring out their own characters, because this is the first time anyone has stepped foot into their own characters. And this is a conversation that you and I had, Thomas, about your character, because you had to take such a hiatus from the game for going to the military for such a long time, that when you step back into it, I mean, this is your what? Fifth, like this next session will be what, your fifth session with us? Something like that?
So fifth or sixth, yeah.
Yeah, when we are, a year into this campaign. So, you're kind of figuring out your character, and, we had to talk about stuff there, because as you're starting to figure this out and you're starting to finally get into the shoes, you realize there's certain things you want to do and certain things you don't. And as a DM, you want to try to help the world mal around your players. There is a almost background loose fluidity. I saw this as an example and I really liked it. People DMing is a lot like how they got Silent Hill 2 to work on the original PlayStation 1. Whereas as you're walking through the town, you're seeing all these buildings and these creatures that are there, and it looks so natural. But in reality, what the game is doing behind the code is the fog is completely blocking the emptiness, that there's nothing beyond the fog, because the PlayStation couldn't load it. But it's, as the game is trying to adapt around you, if you keep going forward, it's going to keep placing buildings in front of you and get to a certain point where it's, okay, this is where this is going to show up. That's where this creature is going to pop out at you. And then it's also backlogging what everything is the player's past. So if they ever turn around and want to go back, they can go back, and then, okay, well, because this is their second time around, they're coming back into this area, we'll put a creature here. So that's kind of like what it's like D&D, or DMing for D&D, is your players are in this perfect state of illusion. And that's the goal, this perfect state of illusion, that they are constantly in this world that is living and breathing, and that whatever they do will have consequences, or whatever they don't do will have consequences about it. But in reality, it's kind of all up to the DM to decide which parts are going to actually move. So the best suggestion I have for new DMs is to, of course, you want to get the overarching idea of the campaign in stone. And let's say we're running a module. I think that, especially for new DMs, that'll be some of the easiest, is running a module, and eventually, as you get more comfortable, you can start putting your own spins on it. We'll use Curse of Strahd as the example, because that's one I'm very familiar with, and that is one where I tried starting from the book, and we were pretty adherent to the book for about 7 or 8 sessions, and then completely abandoned the book after I got comfortable. Starting Strahd, you obviously want to know the intro place of where your players are going to be. You want to be able to invite them into this world and describe these surroundings. As Thomas is sitting down for a new time, for a new playing, he wants to be able to envision his own character where he needs to be, and it's my job to describe it in the right stuff, become very familiar with that intro spot, because you can have in a singular town at least 5 sessions of adventure. So you can really go full dedicated into one town. You can have, hey, I got goblins in the cellar. We need to go take care of them. We can get this investigation of a missing person, a ghost in the attic. There's a lot of opportunities to go through. And Curse of Strahd's a good one because it has a lot of those. And they're all kind of culminating into what's called the Madhouse. And once you're into the Madhouse, that's where the game starts to open up. So you get a lot of opportunity to start to learn. I guess I've been talking for a little while. Am I making sense so far?
I think so. I'm pretty sure I'm following, but I'm kind of new enough that it's like vague concepts to me.
Yeah, it's
All Greek to me.
It's all Greek to me. At least it's not Greek fire. But
Guiding bolt.
oh God, we'll get to that in a moment. And but trying to figure out that beginning stage is important. But once you can get that beginning part, and you have to become familiar with it, the rest of the game is able to be in a blank state. And so if you have your first 2 sessions planned of what you're going to do, of course, your very first session's pretty easy. It's all about character introduction. The players are going to drive a lot of that game, and always don't be afraid to start with you guys meet in a tavern, because that is the best beginner-friendly way to get everyone in, is the adventure in a tavern. And once the players get to know each other, let them RP a little bit, maybe throw a entertaining barkeep in there to, a ornery dwarf is always a fun classic, just if you got the coin to spend it or leave me alone type guy. Those are always funny, quirky guys, because the players usually end up getting into some sort of verbal argument with them, and then that can really get you a chance to
We've
figure
never
out
done that. Name one.
I can name several.
Nuh-uh. That's not true.
And that allows you to establish your cadence with your players, because there's always a relationship between a DM and a player, and it's different depending, like the same player and DM could swap seats, and it would be different because everyone runs a bit of a different game. Everyone has a bit of a different interactions. Like Chris got to find out when he was running Lancer for us, and everyone else was playing somewhat serious characters, and I was playing a somewhat normal serious character, and then he ended up getting written out of the story for story reasons, and then I showed up with a methodic midget. And so that was
story.
So that was fun, and that was I could see the wheels turning in your head of like, oh God, I was not
What have I done?
Yeah, I was not ready for this one to show up. How am I going to make him work in my extreme grim, like not grim dark, but Western style sci-fi world? And that is somewhat serious.
Mistake.
Yep, and then this meth addict midget shows up and is just trying to get a fix. And it's just stuff like that. You just have to play the game of tennis back and forth. But if you just really focus on your first 2 sessions in that very first town, and even your first town can be 6 buildings. You have your tavern, your blacksmith, your apothecary, and a couple of homes for the people to live in. You can have a very small town, and so that way you can have your players get used to their NPCs, and that creates this small little world that the players will end up helping you build. And after that, as they're starting to get to the point and they're just about to like, okay, maybe we can start moving out of this town, as we got a little bit of a foothold, maybe a bit of income, bit of a reputation now. However you want to deal with that, that's on you. If you're like me, you starve them of resources and you make them earn every ounce of gold that they acquire. Personally, I think a starved D&D economy is a healthy D&D economy. Otherwise, it's very easy for the players to outrank your class, even though they're underleveled for your monsters, because they could afford the magic items. Headset's gonna die. Hold on, give me a second. So
Pretend.
anyway, long-winded statement. I know I was getting a bit long-winded there, so I don't remember exactly where I left off. But the best piece of advice to cap it off, to summarize for brand new people, is to figure out 2 sessions. Get your starting location and maybe a small little adventure. There's plenty of online material to grab something online of a goblin adventure or some low-level, easy-to-run encounter. And then as you get more comfortable and you get a cadence built with your players and you kind of start figuring out how you like to DM a little bit and you want to start broadening your world, take it one step at a time. You can just start working on the next location. Once they're ready to move on, okay, now where are they going to move on to? And to go at that point, it's just like walking upstairs. You take one step at a time. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. I got a little long-winded there. I know. I don't remember exactly where I was, but that is one piece that I think could help a lot of people cut down the overwhelming and intimidating factor of starting to DM a massive campaign. I hope that made sense to at least you two. If not, yell at me now.
Yeah, what he
No idea
said.
whatever the fuck he just said. That was it.
Well, you said yell at you, so I did.
Felt like abyssal to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, you peeked the shit out of your mic, so it was just turned into just robotic slop.
I didn't even get that loud.
Well, loud enough.
I've been enjoying playing TTRPGs since I've been back and everything. For context for the listeners, I just worked hellacious schedules and was frequently in work environments that just did not let me have the availabilities that I wanted to have to get out of the trap of being, the evening slash second shift worker and working every weekend day and yada yada yada. So I was never available. And then finally I guess had enough merit and the freedom to be like, no, I'm not working all evenings, or hey, I need some routine amount of time off, yada yada yada. So now I've been playing TTRPGs with the guys, and it's been a great time. I'm really enjoying Lancers. For some reason, Lancers scratched the right itch in my brain where I'm just like hooked onto it. I really liked it. It's got a weird niche in my mind. And then like D&D's been a lot of fun to play too as I'm learning it and finally getting to join in with my friends on that.
Yeah, because we can't get rid of him.
We had a nice moment for the entire time that you decided to shut up.
Yeah, and so I think this would be a good spot. We're at about the 30-minute mark of podcast to call it good on the D&D section. Let's digest a little bit, and who knows, might come back with some more. Just kind of wanted to throw this out there since we're all big D&D nerds. I don't think we're quite at the point where we could do. I mean, we could probably talk for an entire podcast length about it, but whether it would make sense to anyone but us is beyond the scope. I know we had a couple different topics, so Thomas is our fucking note keeper, so whisk it away, stupid.
Apparently.
Okay. The last part was not necessary, all right? I feel a little attacked.
Means you're self-conscious because you know it's true.
I just want to point out that our friend who is in this same Discord as us just texted me and said, "What doing?" as if he can't see that we're in a private channel called recording.
Who?
Well, that's the point of it being private.
Is it not visible? Is that how Discord works?
I don't know. I'm an admin. I couldn't tell you.
Oh, I don't know. I just assumed when it was
I can
locked,
see it because I made.
And I own the fucker.
Well, I guess we'll never know then. I just assumed that the lock meant like you can only join it if you were permitted.
Well, you have permission.
Dom.
Oh. Yeah, that Skeener.
That's a D20 with 120s and all ones on it. Anyway. Halo is, I guess, coming out with. I wasn't fully clear on it. Is it like a reboot series? Are they doing remakes, remasters?
They are rebooting the series.
Okay. All right.
Next Halo game, Halo 2026, supposedly, is going to be a retelling of Halo CE.
Interesting.
In Unreal Engine 5.
I'm very interested to see what that does. What are they gonna like? I mean, I guess what's the goal? Really, is my question. Other than just make money.
Okay. Money.
Like, what's the goal with doing the retelling? Are they trying to integrate something, or?
Well, overall, I think they want to do 343 style because the first three, the original trilogy by Bungie, Master Chief was just a husk. I mean, he said a couple words here and there, but he was really a conduit for the player to put, themselves in his shoes, to experience the game and have a power fantasy. Whereas when 343 took over, starting with Halo 4, they more made Master Chief a proper character. And I think what they want to do is retell the original Halo story with their 343 writing. to where it's going to be more about Master Chief. They'll probably do more to flesh out the relationship between him and Cortana, to be more like the books, or they might even go further than the books. I don't know. And that's what I would imagine they're going to do. But what they should do is a different question. I think they need to be done with Master Chief. I think Master Chief shouldn't have came back after Halo 3.
I just recently was talking about that. I don't remember. I think I was talking to.
So
I think I was talking to my roommate. I was just going to breeze past it for the sake of not having to acknowledge that grossness. I would never do that.
Bullshit.
No?
This guy.
This fucking guy.
Yeah, this guy just shits his pants on a regular.
Well, that's with class, at least.
Yeah. Continue your thought.
Yeah, I was just recently talking about that with somebody. I think it was with my roommate, but just in general, that I agree. Some of my favorite Halo games, personally, are even the ones that don't even include Master Chief. ODST's always been pretty up there for me. Reach was a really good time. I just recently played Halo Wars over the span of the last year. I really enjoyed that game. And it's not like I have anything against the character Master Chief. You know, he's great. It's just me personally, my favorite games have been the ones that just happen to have not included him. So I definitely think more content without him would have been neat. Like if Halo 5 would have been something, a story about Locke's team doing something, not hunting down Blue Team, I think it would have been a little more interesting. I think I would have enjoyed it more. But the fact that they just kept bouncing between Master Chief and Locke and telling this weird story that was unmemorable enough that here we are now and I couldn't tell you what happened in it. You know what I mean?
He punched him in the face. I remember that.
Also, Halo 5, should have been probably sued for deceptive marketing. Because the marketing campaign was awesome. I mean, I was so hyped for Halo 5 because the marketing campaign that, depending on which commercial you got, it was either Chief sitting there with a bolt hole and Locke was about to kill him and said, you were the hero and I'm going to make sure you stay that way, type of thing. Like, I'm going to take you out before you can do more damage to yourself. And then then the other commercial is, Locke was sitting there in the position, Chief was pointing the gun at him saying, you need to get out of my way. I'm saving the universe. I know what I'm doing. Like, oh my God, is it going to be one of those games where there's going to be two campaigns and you got to select, which campaign you want to go down? Who do you want to support? And then the actual game comes out and it has nothing to do with any of that. Even the reveal that Halo 5 is being made was Master Chief walking through the desert with Cortana's chip in his hand on a dog tag type chain. And wearing this hooded thing, which I don't know why he was in a hood. He's in the Mjolnir armor. That thing is temperature controlled and all this stuff is automatic sunglasses.
Keep the sand out of his eyes.
Yeah, the sand out of his visor. And this Guardian pops up.
And
that's how it reveals him.
Gets everywhere.
That's how it reveals him. And that was never in the game. They were never even on a desert, an arid planet. It was... I don't even think the game is long enough to have that opportunity.
There was an arid section when you were driving the big heck off fucking, what was that thing?
Oh,
the giant elephant,
the mammoth.
Mammoth, that's what it was.
Gypsy company.
There was that.
It was. But that wasn't super. It was not the same type of arid. That was
not
more,
like Dunes type arid.
That was like Dunes Desert. That was more like Grand Canyon rocks.
Yeah.
And where just the marketing, A-class marketing, the marketing division at 343 is fucking awesome. Those people have jobs, but they do not work close enough with the people who make the fucking game because they just go off and do whatever they want, apparently. Or they go up to whoever the lead writer is and look at a sticky note on his desk, oh, we can make a commercial out of that. Sure. Because it had nothing.
Yeah, does that say desert or desert? I don't know.
Had nothing to do with the actual game. And so Halo 5, of course, being a massive disappointment. And in retrospect, the campaign's still very disappointing, but the multiplayer, not too bad. A fun arena multiplayer. I wasn't a big fan of Warzone, how it turned it to a pay-to-win slop. But that was just how gaming was at that time. That just, it's not quite the fault of Halo. But, that also is just where 343 has been. Watching the fall from Halo of every game trying to compete to become Halo, to be Halo. You know, Call of Duty and Halo always kind of lived in their own realms. You know, where Call of Duty, came out every year. We got one Halo game about every 3 years in the 360 era, and they really kind of did their own things. And then Halo 4 came out and decided to try to copy COD. And ever since then, it seems like Halo's been trying to keep up with whatever gaming trend was when it used to set the trend. Which was, it's just disappointing.
I'm hoping they bring back dual wielding. That was always my favorite mechanic.
Miss dual wielding. I do miss dual wielding.
You know, what's the original guy's name? Joseph Staten, or whatever his name is. You know, he hates dual wielding. The original creator of Halo hates dual wielding.
Really?
That's why he took it out in ODST and Reach.
But like, why?
I don't know. I don't know why. I watched some documentary, and I think he said it's just not as realistic or whatnot, and it just
in the hands of like a normal person, yes, dual wielding is definitely not as effective as just holding one gun properly. But these weren't normal soldiers. These were not normal people.
Yeah, he didn't like dual wielding. That's why after Halo 3 it got removed. And it would never come back.
I would have been super interested to see them develop on the dual wielding mechanic, and they're Spartans, right? We primarily
where's
put
my
it as a
skill
Spartan
tree?
2 and everything. Fucking develop on it in other games where it's like, okay, you can hold the assault rifle in one arm and have your Magnum in the other, and you're just fucking. That would have been fun.
Yeah, and I liked how it was. I mean, it was, you couldn't dual wield assault rifles and battle rifles, but dual wielding pistols or SMGs. It was smaller caliber weapons. It would be I thought that was perfect. I thought that was good. Now, dual wielding rocket launchers, I still would like to see.
I'm with you there.
But
more accurate, Master Chief.
Yeah.
This is how he was in the books.
But overall, I think,
insane.
and I will die on this hill, Master Chief's story needs to be done. Master Chief, and maybe this is what 343 is going to do, because they said they want to reboot the entire original trilogy and get just a reset on it, and maybe that's what they're going to do after Halo 3. They're going to let Master Chief, be gone. Because those of you that have never beaten Halo 3, I'm sorry to spoil it, but it's an over 20-year-old game.
The game's pretty old, yeah.
Or it's not quite 20, it's 18. It's old enough to where if you haven't played it or have looked it up at this point, you probably never were going to. And at the end of Halo 3, the Forward Unto Dawn, the last ship you jump into in your Warthog gets ripped apart through slip space, and one half gets to go back to Earth with the Arbiter, and the other half drifts out into space with the Chief on it. Well, the Arbiter gets picked up by Earth, and they have a ceremony and everything, and they cannot locate the Forward Unto Dawn. Well, the end of Halo 3 has Master Chief going into a cryopod, saying goodbye to Cortana, saying, "Wake me when you need me." And that was supposed to be the end. That was Bungie's original intent. They didn't even want to make ODST or Reach. They wanted it to be done, but they were contractually obligated to make 2 more Halo games, and that's where we got ODST and Reach from. They wanted it to be done at Halo 3. That was the end. And I think that's where he needed to stay. Because I'm like Thomas. I think over the time, beside putting my nostalgia aside from, growing up with the original Halos and playing them constantly, I think my favorite Halo story is probably Reach. And I think Reach is the best so far, in my opinion, a Halo story. Because I just enjoy seeing how people react in a more normal sense. Because in the original trilogy, you're just a super soldier. Master Chief is just a badass. But the other games, especially ODST and Reach, you feel the more humanity in the humans. They're not just robotic super soldiers. They are people fighting for survival of their own species, and they're not winning. And I think that was probably the most impactful story.
Yeah, I have to say, with how big the Halo universe is, all the different creatures and planets and places, and just the whole Spartans were created to stomp insurrectionists at first.
It was a happy
Like, they
accident. that they
a
were able to fight
happy
the
accident
government.
that aliens decided to show up at the same time. But I feel like with all of that, I feel like being a regular soldier was almost more interesting. I mean, you're facing a force that is technologically superior, physically superior. I mean, they were just monsters. I was like, you were one man against monsters. And I think that's why Chief appealed so much, is because it was, I am one man, albeit a very strong, very powerful, very armored man, but you were one man against a threat that anyone standing behind you, they were going to rip through. It's the gaming power fantasy of I am the wall upon which the storm breaks. But it was always fun to see, like, through ODST, walking through the streets going, okay, I can't take this engagement. I'm like, they're going to beat the ever-loving shit out of me if I walk out of this alleyway. It created fear. And I think fear is one of the lacking motivations that Halo's had. That you've never been afraid of the aliens.
I think
ever.
one of the best experiences you can have is playing ODST on Legendary, because that's almost like lore accurate ODST, because almost everything one-shots you. And I mean, the game is freaking hard. Don't get me wrong. The balancing is something to be desired. I think Halo, it's general consensus that Halo CE is the only truly balanced Legendary experience. That one is just happens to be so finely tuned, and obviously that wasn't, entirely done on purpose. It was kind of a happy accident, because they had no idea what they were doing back then. It just happens to work that way, that it's really finely tuned, and it's a great game. But, I think the ODST experience on Legendary is probably the closest to lore accurate you can get into a video game, because obviously the Halo universe has video games and how those things act, and then how in the actual universe lore accurate things are. Because if everything was perfectly lore accurate, it would be a pretty depressing game. You would just be getting slaughtered over and over.
I enjoyed.
I think could do something cool with that. There is kind of like imagine an entire game, where, and maybe not like a big blockbuster AAA game, but an indie title, that kind of size, of a game like the beginning parts of Battlefield 1, that very intro, where every time you die, you get transported to another soldier, being a whole bunch of Marines trying to take down a Covenant force. I mean, shit, grunts were a problem for the Marines, let alone an elite.
Yeah, I mean, an elite was practically a death sentence. If you saw an elite on the battlefield, you weren't winning. It was over. There were very few Marines in book writing that actually successfully killed a Marine or elite.
Probably how the grunts felt seeing the Spartans come up.
Pretty much.
The demon.
Opposite end of things.
The demon!
I always enjoyed in the books. I've listened to The Fall of Reach probably 5 or 6 times, honestly, because there's just something about that story specifically that really
super good.
Oh, it sits with me so well. Because I listened to a few of the other Halo books. I went through a phase for a long time where I was going through Halo stories and everything. But Fall of Reach just tells such a brilliant aspect of Master Chief that was not shown in the games, in my opinion and in my experience, any of the games, really. Because as soon as we pick up Master Chief, he's already experienced. He's already got time under his belt. He's a warfighter. But Fall of Reach brings you from him as a child to learning how to be the way he is. And unfortunately, we still don't really get much of a between inexperienced to experienced, because he kind of just, with his accelerated intellect and everything, becomes that guy, almost off rip. But it was fascinating to watch the development. Watch him be like, okay, but is this lives spent or lives wasted? And decision-making and just the descriptions, because I feel like a lot of that book was also told from, like, as if the narrative was, or the narrator was a human, as opposed to just a disembodied voice, because they described these Spartans like creatures of myth, not like they were people at all. They described them as these shapes that moved instantaneously through the shadows and, this raw brutality that was unrivaled by anything that's ever been witnessed before, yada yada yada. So I always thought that was really interesting.
Well, it's the true power of the Mjolnir suit. I mean, the actual reason the Spartans were made, like the Spartan 2s were even made, was because they made the armor first and no one could use it because the armor was killing them. The armor was so sensitive that, and it was so fast that the normal human body couldn't handle the armor. So the entire reason the Spartans exist the way they do is because they needed to for the armor. That's all it was based off of. It wasn't the, we made these Spartans, now let's make them a cool piece of armor, which ends up being this, like, they describe that myth of, that thing of legend, because these suits were, in actual lore, they are so blindingly fast, and there's ones that are faster, like Kelly is known as the fastest Spartan, that they're just gone in a blink. It's like they're just so much faster, and they're so cool. But you just don't, that's just not something that translates to video games very well. And sadly, the only thing of expanded universe Halo's ever been able to get right is the actual books. Any other thing they try sucks dick. Would love to see one good Halo movie. Just one. Just one.
Yeah.
Or any sort of just sit back and watch Halo media.
Yeah, the only ones that's actually decent out there is a collection of short stories with the Halo Legends, but those are all so independent of each other and of everything else. They're fun to watch. Like, don't get me wrong, I've seen them 100 times, but it's not the same as, if we could watch an actual movie adaptation of The Fall of Reach, and not like the animated one they made. I know technically they made one, but The Fall of Reach movie was not great. It was like, okay, it's following the book, and one, the animation kind of sucked. It's like, all right, it's following the book, and followed it pretty closely until it just ended, and then just skipped a couple steps, and now they're Spartans. It was kind of weird, very jarring. But I know Christopher Nolan has been trying to get Microsoft, and there's been talks about him getting The Fall of Reach for a true movie adaptation after he's done with the Odyssey, which I think would be just awesome. Christopher Nolan is my favorite director, and I think it would be just amazing to see him do an adaptation of essentially what he wants to do is kind of moviefy the game Reach, as opposed to doing the Fall of Reach story.
I think that'd be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, that would sounds like a really good time, to be honest.
Is there anything you guys would like to see added? Anything that hasn't been in, but you would like to see added into the new Halo series, or stuff that was added later on that, you'd like to see in the trilogy again?
I'd like to see a game come out feature complete.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like, it'd be
Man,
cool
that's
if
a good
they had
question.
Forge on day one like Halo 3. It'd be cool if they had 4-player co-op split screen like Halo 3 did. It'd be cool if they had more than 6 multiplayer maps in game modes like Halo 3 at launch. I know I keep going back to Halo 3, but that's kind of the pinnacle of what Halo really hit on launch. And that game's from 2007. Because, yeah, Reach kind of came out of that stuff too. But Reach did the same thing that 3 did, and I just liked using 3 because Reach came out in 2010, 3 came out in 2007. But
I also liked Reach's customization. I'm a big customization guy when it comes
Reach's
to any
armor
game.
customization was really fun.
it's still unrivaled.
Yep.
I hope we get it back.
I think it's like on a technical level, Halo 5 is more customizable, but Halo 5 was you need to get it out of rec packs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's all like some
Loot
backhanded
boxes.
Loot box, or Halo Infinite is skins based and core based, to where you have to own certain ones and certain armor pieces can't go on others. Where Reach was all based on playtime. It wasn't all unlocked off the rip, but there was no paying for it. It was just play or do challenges. Like I think the days of gaming, of some of the best gaming out there for multiplayer games, is when you could grind your ass off for a piece of gear that was so unique and so few people had that it just made you stand out. Because now all those cool pieces of armor cost $20. I mean, actually, it's cheap compared to a lot of them now. Now it costs $30-$40 to get these bundles and all this stuff, to get the cool pieces of armor. I know I said at the beginning I didn't want to do it, but I used Destiny 1 as an example, because that was the last game that really kind of did it that old school way of raid gear. The raid gear, they always took an extra moment to make badass, because that gear that was gear no one else was getting. And at the time, there was no silver shop. There was no cosmetic shop in that game, the year one, when I played. And that was always cool, because you could have people come up to you and, oh, cool, you got that piece of armor, or what? And like Halo 3 was the Hayabusa, or I don't remember which one exactly it was.
Hayabusa.
Yeah, I think it was the Hayabusa, where if you posted a clip on Bungie.com and they liked it, a Bungie developer could give you the Hayabusa helmet. And so that meant you did something cool. And so you'd see that in game, like, whoa! And then Halo Infinite comes out.
Hayabusa was just the like achievement one, wasn't it? What helmet?
I thought in Halo 3, Hayabusa was I'm pretty sure it was the Bungie one. Either that or it was like Recon or something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I don't know, but there's one helmet.
Now that I'm thinking of it, I'm like,
Hayabusa was either the like complete legendary or something like that, or it was Recon that was something along the lines. There was some helmet. Yeah. I know there was a helmet. I don't remember exactly which one, because it's been long enough, but it was like you got recognized by Bungie, and that's how you got it. And like Halo Reach had the same thing. It was a meal helmet, but instead of the carvings of the skull, it was the ghost, like the phantom inside the helmet. And you had to get recognized by Bungie to get that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just nothing like that anymore. And, you know, the biggest game right now that has everything like that, and every game's got fucking skins, but Call of Duty, to get the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle skins, cost $90.
Jesus.
Like, or you can be generic soldier and look like a piece of shit. You know, everyone wants to look cool, but it's skins are just crazy expensive, and there's no earning them. And Marvel Rivals is the other game that's out that's a lot of skins. And I buy skins on there. Now, I think Marvel Rivals is a bit better priced than Call of Duty, and it's a game I actually fucking enjoy, as opposed to Call of Duty.
And currency that you can earn by doing in-game achievements.
Yeah, technically, you can earn it. Now, is it 100% possible to get all the skins you want?
Nope.
No, because the currency exchange is not that high, but it is technically possible. There has been a handful of skins where I've got to, instead of spending I think like when the Rocket skin came out, instead of spending $40 for the Squirrel Girl Rocket skin, I had enough currency to where I only needed to buy the $10 gold pack. So instead of spending all the cash for it, I had enough coins from the Battle Pass to where it saved me $1. But I think, kind of trying to circle back, if we could get back to the point in gaming where it's not so cosmetic driven and paid games are not full of cosmetic slop, I think Halo would benefit a lot. I hope to God they don't make Halo a free-to-play multiplayer again. That absolutely fucking killed Halo Infinite, being free-to-play and everything they had to do to sustain it. That's what killed Halo Infinite.
I don't think that's what killed it. I think it was just the multiplayer just sucked at launch. It was just another one of those like incomplete features at launch.
Well, it was that, but then they said they didn't have the money.
The monetization was definitely bad. But just right off the rip, things were buggy and features were missing, and it just felt empty.
I mean, Microsoft had a really bad mishandling of the Infinite's development, and there is a lot of stuff you can read about that. But it's also, they did come out and say, and you know, Microsoft's got to make money. They're a big company first, and Infinite didn't make hardly any money off the item shop because the game is so in feature complete. When if they would have just charged $60 for the game and had everyone just pay money, they could have had the funding right away. And Microsoft would, because Microsoft saw that they didn't make enough money and laid everyone off. Said, nope, gone. Or as opposed to keeping them on, hey, we made just enough money, but you guys need to fix this shit. But I also think
Bungie,
that
please fix.
yeah, but though I guess you're right. I don't think Halo Infinite was the entire cause, but it's also a lot
definitely
of
didn't
games
help.
are like a lot of games fall into that same trap, and Infinite's just kind of the one that we're kind of talking about.
Mhm.
You know, where a lot of games come out free to play and say, "Oh yeah, well we want to do feature complete, but we don't have the money." Like Path of Exiles 2 is going to be free to play when it comes out, or you can pay $30 now and get it for free, and play it, not get it for free, but play it early. And there's certain updates where they just stagnate, saying, "Sorry guys, we don't have enough money." It's like, all right, so we're just sitting here without anything.
Yep, the unfortunate truth of it.
Hold on, my headset buzzed again. God damn it.
There's no.
Headset problems resolved.
Good. I'm glad we want you to hear us. Kind
know
of
about that one.
piggybacking. Well, all right. You're not saying anything anyway. No, it's fine.
What?
I'm joking. Calm down.
Why are you so
Untwist your
mean to
tit-
Roger?
What?
I'm going to go to the police academy and get trained and certified just so I can go, sir, and then tase you when you piss me off.
Sir.
I'll just let you do it anyway. But kind of piggybacking off of the customization conversation, there are some things that I do like with customization because I'm a huge customization guy when it comes to games. Now, necessarily making everything super expensive, no, that's just always sucked, and I've never been a fan of that. But one thing that's come out of recent years that we're seeing a lot more often, or at least from my perspective, because I didn't notice it much growing up, and now I'm seeing it a lot more, is it's taken a few different names. It's always, to me, been called the vanity system, but I've seen a couple games like Diablo 4 call it the transmog, where, I don't personally enjoy games having stats tied to pieces of gear and you can't do anything about it. Because if I sit here and my character's wearing a bright pink hoodie with this like red mohawk or whatever, and it's like, okay, I don't want my character to look like that and these serious cutscenes that are going on, but they give me like plus 30% fire damage on every basic attack that I do, and they reduce my cooldowns or whatever. You know what I mean? Stuff like that where it's like, okay, you kind of have to give and take and just lose a little bit of your connection to the story, your immersiveness there. So maybe that's just me, but I've always liked having systems in place where it's like, okay, yes, I have to equip this gear because it has these stats, but I can, put on a visual layer overhand where, okay, this really cool looking leather jacket has dog shit stats, but at least its stats are coming from something else.
What game calls it the vanity system? I've always heard it called the transmog system. That's what it's always been to me.
I don't know. When I was younger, I heard somebody call it that, and that's just what it's been in my head,
Just stuck
like
with
my
you since
entire
it comes
life.
First.
Yeah, pretty much. Just kind of like, yep, that's about
I don't know
it.
if you remembered it was like a certain game. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Oh,
That's
I
the funny
100%
thing. I've
agree
never
with
even
transmog.
seen it.
Yeah.
Like transmog is 100% a great feature, and games like Halo, like we were talking about, it's a little bit not as big of a deal because gear doesn't have statistics, but for games like Diablo, it is super nice to have games that are don't limit how you want to, especially RPGs that is all about customization and personalization, but it's gear statistic side. Like I remember when Cyberpunk finally came out, the update to where you could wear gear and then look a certain way because you could either have it to where your character reflected the gear you're wearing, or you could have a completely other section of what gear like your character was wearing versus what it looked like. And that was really cool because it actually opens up your customization. Because I always have to make a pretty lady, and,
Why you say it like that? A pretty lady.
because it's a pretty lady. I don't make some butch wife. It's I want to make a cool looking girl. And so, like, I wanted to be in a sleek spy dress and everything, but you get ass raped because you just get blown up because it's got no explosive resistance. But when that mod or when that update finally came out, I could still wear the cool outfit, look pretty, and then be really wearing a tier 4 plate and actually being able to be a superhuman tank.
In a dress.
In a dress.
In a dress, yes.
The real reason he used a dress as the example is because that's just what he wears when he plays the game.
Well, that's what I'm wearing right now.
What do you think you need to be protected
What
from?
are you wearing, Jake from State Farm?
A dress.
A dress. But what's your opinion, I guess, because we didn't really get to Gear 2's opinion over if gear should be technically open and accessible by everyone for a couple of pennies, or having some of the best gear and best looking gear locked behind achievement-based and merit-based content, where you have to say raid gear. Let's just use raid gear. If you complete a raid, you get gear that looks really fucking cool, but you have to complete the raid to get the gear. You can't just go to the item shop and buy it.
See, it's a hard question because you should definitely, regardless of what's available, you should definitely be rewarded for doing the hard activities. You should definitely be rewarded for putting the effort in. Raid gear should always be good. Raid gear should always look good. But however, I do understand having other options to still look good, especially there's a lot of people who can't necessarily put in the time to those games.
Sure.
There are people who, are working 80 hours a week at a trade job, and I'm like, all right, I come home, I drink a beer, and I play like an hour of video games before I have to go to bed.
But
like, I understand them wanting to look good too.
But we're talking about the difference here between like the base, because technically if it's raid gear, it's base game content, where base game stuff gets outclassed by something purchasable every time. Like, imagine a Diablo barbarian with base game content, with the skull helmet. Yeah, looks cool. No matter how much you put work into, a fucking $30 bundle in the store is going to look way fucking cooler. Now, especially games, like I remember one of my big issues was with Destiny, and that's what really turned me off of the game way back when, was the raid gear was cool. It was the coolest, but then the paid gear was, but these ones change color and, they color shift and, they do all this cool shit where your gear's just black and it's no longer the coolest because you didn't spend money on it. You just earned it.
I've always seen like a dual benefit and downside to having the option to purchase things that you were supposed to unlock. Because it's like, yes, like in terms of pride, I get it. It's just pay to win if you put stat-based shit available to be purchased when it's supposed to be earned. But if it was purely cosmetic, right? Like armor, skins, appearances, name banners, stuff like that, I have no personal issue with having the option to buy it instead of just having to earn it for, kind of like Chris said, those people that they just don't have the time, or maybe even the people to do it. Because let's take a game like
Also a
Night
good point,
Rain
yeah. For
that
some
just
of
came
those
out.
raid activities in certain games are upwards of 6 to 12 people in some of these activities, which, yeah, there's always in-game matchmaking normally for some of those activities, but if there's actual mechanics and stuff with these encounters, it can be hard for those random people to actually get that shit done.
Oh yeah. Now,
we've all experienced it for sure.
I am hard stuck in the camp that if it's a stat-based gear system, that I don't think you should be able to buy it at all. I'm a big hater. That might be a hill that I have to die on alone. I don't know, but I just hate being able to purchase things that are statistically better than a majority of other shit. But cosmetics wise, I completely get it. I think almost everything cosmetically in the game could potentially just be behind a paywall / earn wall at the same time.
Yeah, and I think I think we're arguing the same sides, the two different sides of the same coin. Because I understand, but it's almost like, and this is something that's so hard to prove, but it's almost like the people who make like raid gear, and stuff like that is like a completely different artist and a worse. And I'm not trying to like talk shit about video game artists because they're obviously super talented, more talented than I am, but it's almost like they get better talent to do the paid content, like the paid cosmetics. Now, if it was at least like just unique, but it was made by the same people, so it was just as cool, I would be all right with it. But it's always oh, I have this piece of raid gear that I hard earned, and it just doesn't look nearly as cool as if I spent $40 in the shop. It's why would I wear it? Because these people that didn't do what I did just spent money and look way better than I do. And especially for someone who cares about customization like yourself and, I do, that would be, I would just be upset. That just would mean what was the point in doing the raid?
100%. I'm with you there. I don't like when a game puts the best things behind purely a paywall and then they leave pretty much just shitty rewards for the earnable options. If anything, how would I say? I would say I'm kind of in the camp
should
of
both
like,
look really good. They should both look really good.
Yeah, which if they did, that wouldn't be a problem. But we all know, show me one game that has the base free, like earnable cosmetics looks just as good as the paid content. It just doesn't exist. It's to the point, like there's some of them like Diablo, just in general art style, like it's pretty hard to look terrible in Diablo 4. But there's definitely a kitted out barbarian wearing his gear earned in game doesn't look nearly as cool as a barbarian that spent money in the shop. Though he can look serviceable, but just looks nowhere near cool enough as the guy in the shop.
Specifically in Diablo 4, I think the only time I might disagree, and granted I haven't played Diablo 4 in ages now, but
like it's been a long time for me. I'm like,
I remember playing as a necromancer and contemplating trying to buy skins for my necromancer because I'm like, I really enjoy this game. I might actually just go out of my way to get a skin for this class. And I remember going through the library and I was like, I really don't enjoy any of these necromancer skins as much as I personally am enjoying the base game ones. That's a rare occasion though.
Yeah, and of course everything's also always subject to personal preference.
Yep.
Yeah. That's kind of a given at this point. I agree with you.
Yeah, so that stuff's always interesting.
You want to talk about Gears of War?
Sure, we can touch on
yeah. Yeah, it's just a new game I just heard of. You want to talk about Gears of War?
Well, Gears that's the point of the docket, is just like when we hit the yes-os. So
Gears of War E-Day slated to release sometime 2026. So that is going to be the newest installment into the Gears of War franchise. And we also have Gears of War Reloaded coming out in August. And that is the remaster of the first Gears of War game, updated for 4K textures, 120 FPS multiplayer, and releasing on PlayStation for the first time ever. I think, quickly touch on Gears of War Reloaded, the way Xbox has been going, and Xbox to even survive as a company at this point in the gaming division. And it's also always a win to have more people on, because the Gears of War games, since their heydays back in 1, 2, and 3 on the 360, have a dedicated little player base, but they're no longer mainstream games, just like Halo. Microsoft does not treat their exclusives very well. So I think it's always a net positive to have more players available to play this game, especially for people like our buddy Brady that has never played a Gears of War game in his life, but likes shooters and everything, and cover shooters and just badass gruesomeness. I'm always for more people being able to play it coming out on PS5. Some people are heated about it, saying Microsoft's giving up the GOAT. I don't think it's a big deal at this point. I think the PS5 said to have sold almost 70 million consoles already, and Microsoft's in the just over 30 million.
Yeah, I get exclusives to exclusives to drive sales and whatnot, but to me, it's always kind of felt bad to be like, oh, that game's really cool. I want to play it. And then like, oh, well, didn't buy the right console to play that game. It's always kind of felt bad to me, but
Well, it was also
so I'm all for it.
And I on one hand I do get it because my dad was super into the consoles and everything. I mean, shit, had a 360 on launch, and so I kind of was in growing up into the complete prime of the console wars. I mean, the Xbox 360 versus PS3 was a fucking bloodbath. And those two consoles literally sold neck and neck. The PS3 ended up outselling it by like 100,000 copies, which I know that's a lot, but we're talking like the 360 sold 86 million and the PS3 sold like 87 million, or something like that, or 86.5. It was something close, and it was right at the end of the generation. It was kind of fun to really stake your claim in your console because we could only afford one of them, and it was cool, we're going to go Xbox, because one Xbox was way cheaper. PS3 launched at $700, Xbox launched at $400, and that was staking our claim. And we got rewarded for it with Gears of War, Halo, a couple other games. Call of Duty really came to its prime. I know Call of Duty was on PlayStation 2, but everyone knows back in the day, Call of Duty was a better experience on Xbox. That was just a fact. I hate to break it to you people that were Sony fanboys. That it's just a fact. Call of Duty was better on Xbox 360.
Wow, I just watched the episode analytics just tank right here. I wonder what we said. I don't remember, huh?
But
what could have possibly happened?
It's true. It's just because the way, and it's fascinating watching old school documentaries because the PS3 was so hard to develop for. People couldn't figure out. The 360 was just easy. So it was just easier to get better games. Because the one thing I even talked about it way back when, Black Ops 2 on the Xbox 360 and a PS3 are pretty almost night and day differences. Like the PS3, it's like there's a layer of Vaseline over all the textures. Even though technically the PS3 is playing at a full 1080p and on a Blu-ray disc, where the Xbox 360 is playing at like a weird like 720p upscaled and on a normal DVD. But because the 360 was so much easier to develop for, people just figured out the quirks around it and just made it look better. I mean, it's crazy. But, that was always fun to, you'll stake your claim into a console and kind of ride it. But what happened in the next generation of Xbox One and PS4, Xbox One not only was a tragic fucking launch, I mean, they just fumbled from the beginning, but then there was no goddamn games. No exclusive games. I mean, at least Sony was pumping out games. I mean, they came out with Killzone on launch, which I know a lot of people aren't big Killzone fans, but it was a big enough franchise to, all right, cool, let's go get a PlayStation and play new Killzone. And then they came out with the Order 1886, pretty mid game, but definitely graphically impressive for the time. And shortly after that, announcements of God of War. I mean, just game after game. Xbox One had Sunset Overdrive in 2014, which is an underrated hidden gem. Didn't sell for shit.
Banger game.
I was about to say, I was like, hold on. You get Sunset Overdrive out of your fucking mouth.
But it sold like shit. Because it wasn't
really
advertised.
Did.
But that was
the Crew.
The Crew wasn't exclusive.
Was it not?
No, Crew is multiplayer.
I don't think I've ever noticed it on PlayStation. I think every time I've seen the Crew, it's been on Xbox.
And they had the new Forza. They had Forza 5, and then they had Forza Horizon 2. Okay, and then a couple years later, Gears of War 4. Yeah, Gears is back. And then Gears of War 4 is pretty freaking mid. Oh, cool. Halo 5, Forza Horizon 3, Forza Horizon 4, Forza Horizon 5.
Yeah, there was a lot of Forza.
Yeah, and then it was Forza Horizon 6, or Forza 6, then Forza 7, and then we get to the new console, the Xbox Series X. Oh, we're going to launch Halo Infinite day one. Series X comes out. We're delaying Halo Infinite to 2021. Oh, and that was about it. I mean, you can count on two hands the amount of Xbox exclusives that came out in the last 10 years. So it is.
Most of them are Forza.
Yeah, like half of them are Forza. And So it's one of those where it's the Xbox has squandered itself so bad that now, like, your statement of this is kind of shitty because it's on another console is completely the right choice, because there's no stake in the game of being, with one over the other. I mean, I'm borderline am at the point where sometimes I think, I'm like, damn, if it wasn't for Game Pass, I would fucking hate myself for owning an Xbox. Because why the hell would I own an Xbox? Especially now, every Xbox game's going to go to PS5. What? I have both of them. I play the Xbox all the time, never touched the PS5. But if I could go back in time, I would do it the other way around, knowing what I know now. And, I mean, full transparency, the only reason I got a Series X was because I couldn't get a PS5. I was going to get a PS5. I wasn't going to get a Series X. But then I could get the Series X almost 8 months before I can even snag a PS5, so that's where I got it from. So, yeah. Xbox going full multiplat, I think, will be interesting. Xbox's new showcase, I don't know if you guys actually watched the showcase or you just watched some of the trailers, but some of the pieces, like the in-between, like they want the commercial of when they're showing, this person's working on the tablet, this person's on their computer, this person's on their phone, and they're like, this is an Xbox, this is an Xbox, this is an Xbox. Xbox is no longer, I think, wanting to be that physical black box in your entertainment system. I think they want to be purely a cloud service and a game publisher now. And I think that's where they're going to go.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, that is certainly where it looks like it's going for sure.
Now, I know we're supposed to get a 2026 Xbox, supposedly, is when the announcement's going to come, that it's going to drop next year, because they didn't want to do a mid-console refresh like the PS4 Pro, because they are just going to try to beat Sony to the punch and get a new console out, and this would be the last Xbox physical ever made by Microsoft. And that could be interesting, because we're supposed to get the new Halo in 2026, and then Gears of War E-Day. Because there's also a weird thing where some of the Xbox Showcase games were still showing available for Xbox One. And if we can get another console out there, they'd have to drop them at this point. There's no way developers are going to develop for 3 generations of Xbox, and when one of them's over 10 years old. I would hope, at least. So, I think Gears of War E-Day is going to ride or die on how much they want it to work on an Xbox One. And I'm a little afraid, because they haven't said what it's going to come out on. They haven't said anything at all about it. But at current state, every Xbox One exclusive, or every Xbox exclusive has come out on Xbox One, playable day one. I mean, half the reason Baldur's Gate 3 took so long to come out was because they were trying to get backwards compatibility working on the older system, then gave up on it, but then they couldn't even get it to work on the Series S because the Series S was too underpowered. And that's why Baldur's Gate took so long to come out on Xbox.
I'm looking forward to all the PlayStation players playing Gears 2 for the first time.
Yeah, I'm really wondering if they're going to do, like, I heard the rumor, but then I thought that was what the announcement was going to be, but they might be doing it per game. They're going to do like a big Master Chief Collection style for Gears with 1, 2, and 3, but Gears Reloaded is just the first game.
I still remember when I first got my Xbox One fucking way back when, it took 3 days to install the Master Chief Collection. My Xbox was on for 72 hours installing that
You also
thing.
had some impressive shitternet.
CenturyLink,
Yeah, that's
454 or whatever it was called. It was so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Holy.
That dude, it was horrible playing games. It was to the point his internet was so bad to where when he got the new consoles would hardly let him play because it just wasn't fast enough. The 360 and everything would still let him connect and everything, but he would just lag all the time. But it got to the point where the new console would just give up. I remember there was like a year where before your parents upgraded, and where it just would refuse to connect. Just nope, can't work.
Yeah, I think that's where my
wild.
love for the solo experience started. Just being disconnected from the rest of the world.
By force.
I am primarily, and we've talked about this a good amount between the two of us, Kane and I am primarily a single player experience guy. I love good multiplayer games. I love playing games and experiencing things with the buddies and everything, but I will always take a really good individual story over just the general repetitive multiplayer experience.
I'm 100% with it now. I used to be the other way around. I used to be like my little brother is and absolutely refused to play any game that wasn't the Call of Duty, like a Call of Duty multiplayer. And, oh, I don't care about the campaign. I don't care about the single player. Now I give two shits about the multiplayer. I would much rather have a awesome, fun single player experience like a Plague Tale, God of War, and I can rattle off a ton of games like that. I mean, Gears of War single player experience. I'd much rather have a great single player experience in a story than a somewhat decent multiplayer shooter.
Honestly, the most multiplayer I need, and this might be a little bit of a hot take, but most multiplayer I need is bring back the old, almost Saints Row style multiplayers where it's just, hey, we're just going to play the campaign and duplicate the main character, or you both create your own characters, or player one will play the main character and player two will play whatever side character is available each level or each portion of the game. And just drop you in. Just have fun with it. It doesn't have to make sense for it to be multiplayer. You can just play the game and have two of the main character there, even just for the cutscene, whatever it is. You know what I mean? I feel like we're at a technological point where it's possible and nobody's doing it.
Well, it's also the same point of, like I said earlier, I mean, games from 2005, 6, 7 were doing it. And then all of a sudden, they wanted to act like it wasn't possible in the last generation. Like, I mean, shit, Halo 5, fucking Halo, didn't even have a single bit of split screen. Halo Infinite now has split screen multiplayer, but that took them 2 years to add. So it's at that weird point of, because essentially what you're saying, you want co-op experiences again. And that just completely disappeared this last generation. And I wish people would actually do a co-op experience. I mean, now Call of Duty's talking about doing a co-op campaign. This new campaign for Black Ops 7 is supposed to be co-op. But it's Black Ops 7. Cool. I won't touch it.
I can't believe there's been that many Black Ops games.
Yeah. I remember being upset when Black Ops 2 was announced. Because we're like, oh, what a, they just copied the Modern Warfare 3, the naming stuff. And so it was just lame. We were hoping, because it was, back then it was Treyarch was always unique. They had Call of Duty 3, which I guess is just Call of Duty 3, World at War, and Black Ops. And everyone's, oh yeah, let's just play Black Ops. Let's play Black Ops. And I remember, me and my couple of my buddies were just mad because we were like, yeah, you want to play Black Ops? And someone goes, which one? We're like, oh, that's annoying. And we were just like, oh man,
That's annoying.
like, man, they couldn't come up with any other thing. And then Black Ops 3 came out, and then Black Ops 4, and then Cold War, and Black Ops 6, and now we're getting 7. And it's just how it is. They're just straight up numbering.
It's ridiculous. Too many games of that series. They need to start a new one. Advanced Warfare 2, damn it.
Call of Duty is a game series that really needs. I mean, everyone's been talking about it. It's to the point where they were going to do it. They were going to let it be a 2-year game. MW2 was supposed to be a 2-year game. MW3 2023 was actually supposed to be DLC. That the reason why every single map was just a Modern Warfare 2 remaster was because that game was legit supposed to be DLC. That was just supposed to be an expansion pack on MW2. But the game sold like such shit, played like such shit, that they just said, all right, no, we need a new Call of Duty, and now they keep doing it. That is a game where so many developers have come out and said, we beg to have an extra year. They say it just would take a year. Because I watched this video, and this guy was getting to talk to a dev, and he asked, it's like, why the hell is Call of Duty 320 gigs now? And the guy turned around and said, if we could have an extra year, all that could go away. He's like, we can knock it down to like 120 gigs for 3 games, but there's so much patchwork on top. It's just Band-Aid after Band-Aid after Band-Aid that there's so much technical debt that's accrued here that they just don't have time to fix.
Yeah, COD being as big as it is, I'm like, wow, this fucking download size is just too big. It's too much space to be holding on my console for something that, I'm gonna be honest, the last few of them haven't even been very fun, in my opinion.
It's like, and
Like,
it's,
they're always nice to play with like a friend when they first come out, and then it's like, wow, now I'm bored.
and you know, we had some good times with MW3 and I guess MW2. We all played that. MW2, MW3, and BO6. We had good times on launch because it's new. It's the new COD, and you know, and honestly, for some reason, Call of Duty does this shit all the time. Where like the beginning say, oh yeah, it's kind of cool. There's a couple broken guns, so you know, need to get those fixed. And then they come out with some obligatory patch that just fucking breaks everything and ruins it. And you're like, oh, all right, nah, I'm done with it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Let's go.
Anyway,
Wait for
though,
the next one.
on that spot, I think we're going to end here because we are an hour and a half in. So thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully this will be one of many more to come. And I'll talk to you all later.
See ya.